This tutorial is going to cover movement, selection groups, activity announcement, and tractoring. To start off with movement, there's multiple ways of moving your units. One of those ways is mouse, then the other one's keyboard, and finally there's actually the control window which you can use to move the units themselves. Let's start with the most simplest, which is going to be the control window. In the control window, you'll see that there's multiple ships here. The Clink, that is the one that I own and I'm flying right now. I'm moving speed 15. It is my turn to move. As you can see here, the speed announcement of 15. So one way of moving is using this right here. It is the movement star, I guess you'd call it. And you can go left, straight, right, side slip right, side slip left, head back and to the left, direct reverse, about face, and a quick turnaround to the right, usually a head. Now, so to want to move straight, you just click on that. And if for chance you don't like that move and you want to go backwards, you just click undo move. To turn, you turn, and if you notice down here, the point of turn is then added to the board, so then it can track your movement. Okay, undo that. And side slip will also do the same thing. It will add the side slip counter to the board, and then it will allow you to it'll side slip the ship. Okay, let's undo that movement. Next, we're going to cover mouse. Mouse is pretty simple too. You can just click on it and drag your unit. And now to undo that, you have to use the game list control. And if you want to turn, hold down the shift key and then click and drag. And it will move, it will actually turn your ship. And to side slip, you just click and drag, and it'll recognize that you've done a slip and continue on. And lastly, there is the actual keyboard controls. Keyboard controls are relatively simple if you have a numeric keypad, because if you have a numeric keypad, it will match this pattern: 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and 3. So if you press, on the case of a Mac, a Command 7. For Windows, it would be Control 7. It would then move, it would turn you. Command 8 or Control 8 will move you forward. Control 9 will move you, turn you left. So let's undo that. Oops. In this case, I'm not going to use any mouse clicks or buttons. So if I hit Command 7, boom, it turns. Now, if you want to, you can undo the movement by holding down Command for the Mac, Control for the PC, and back up. And same thing for movement. You can straight ahead, back up for Control B, or Alt or Command B, and Control 9 or Command 9 if you're on the Mac. And that's all. That's the different ways of actually doing movement. Next thing I'm going to show is activity announcements. Activity announcements are done through the activity window. To bring up the activity window, you just press the activity button. Oops. And I forgot to move. This is a warning that if there's a unit that has not yet moved, but you want to move on to activity, that it says, no, 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 you can't do that. So, well, let me move my ship. Let's go directly ahead. So, click on activity, and you get this wonderful activity window. There's multiple things you can do. One's announce speed. You can announce your fire control. Like if you want to activate your fire control after you've been under Wild Weasel. Activate and deactivate cloaking. Rolling for lock on. Operating tractor. So if you want to tractor somebody, you use a tractor. You can attempt to identify seeking weapons. Basically, when you want to announce that you're going to use the labs. Launching the drones. So if you want to launch drones, you click on launch drones. There's multiple actions. Currently, there's only this, which is launch drones or no action at all. These are little helper utilities to help you. And in this case, okay, I'm going to launch this and this. This is the generated name that it will be using. The type, you get to select. I'm going to launch one fast from here, and here I'm going to launch a type 4 fast. My direction of my drones currently selected to D, that's the default. You need to specify the direction. I'm going to specify direction A. And the target, that's going to be red, the Fed. And after you've done that, all you have to do is click execute. It will bring up a confirmation of, okay, this is the orders that you wish to do. I would advise to not click on the do not show in future, just because it's an extra layer of protection for you, just to make sure that this is what is going to be shown to your opponent. And this is what you want to do, and make sure, just double check, because there have been more than one time where I know I've looked at it and went, wait a minute, that's not what I want to do. So then just click OK, and at that point we are waiting for the opponent to respond with their activity, because the activity window will then pop up on their side too. And with that, opponent selected to do no activity, but I did my activity, which is, if you look down here, see that the Andromedan, that's me, the Clink launched 2 drones, and that's the summary line, and then there's other lines here, which is, okay, you got the drone launching this direction. This drone is also location, which is 219, that's where it's launched from. Now, if you noticed, actually, is you see this red arrow. This red arrow is used to define what the seeking weapon that is selected is pointing to. By default, well, automatically the drones are selected, or any seeking weapons, plasma, drones, shuttle, whatever, is automatically selected when you launch them. Now, that's how you do activity. If you want to, let's say that I'm going to do some let's announce emergency deceleration. This is one of those things that, if you notice, there are no actions available. But here, you can go in and actually enter in a manual order, and then that will be popped up on the others in the chat windows, so your opponent will see. And that is the way to specify activity actions and have it so it's actually integrated part of the client. One thing that does happen is by default these things are recorded. If you notice right here, the event is the summarization line. If you go into here and you click Edit View, you'll see that here's a summary, and then here are the details of what actually occurred on that from that event. And with that, that covers activity announcement. Next, I want to talk about selection groups. Selection groups are used to select different units to allow you to more quickly to move those units or possibly delete them, but mostly it's used for movements. I'll bring up the game list here, game list control. Right now I've got my 2 drones and my ship selected. Well, normally what I like to do is separate them out. Have the ship have its own one, so let's do the set. Let's click set, and I'm going to use F1. That's going to be my ship. So when I press the F1 key, that automatically will select my ship only. Now, what I'm going to do is for my drones, I'm going to have that use the F2 key. So now, those are all set. Now, you can either use the F2 key. Also, you can use these buttons. So if I press F1, just the ship is selected. If I click on F2, just the drones are selected. Okay, now if I press the F1 key here, F2 key here, I will select the drones. If I select the F1 key here, I select the ship. If I select the hit the F2 key, I select the drones. Now you can do the same thing when it comes to the actual ship when you're actually on the board itself. So if I go here, let's first move on to movement. Let's go on to the next impulse. My drones move. So right now my drones are selected. So I'll move them forward. Ignore this, it's a little glitch which I need to work out. Go on to the next one. Both 14 and 15 move. And now I have to change it to my ship. So F1, you see the selection now changes to the ship. And I will side slip. And I'll select F2, select the drones, and I'm going to turn them in to face my opponent. See? So the selection state is equivalent both in the game control list and on the board itself. So that is how you use selection groups, and they are available both on the keyboard when you're at the board level, or if you want to either keyboard or press the buttons on the game control list. Now, finally, the last thing I wanted to talk about is tractoring. Tractoring is relatively simple. You need to bring up the activity window, and let's go operate tractors and what you normally would do, then say, okay, tractoring red using 1 point. Because usually you start with 1 point of energy and then you do a tractor auction. Currently, there's no automated way of doing a tractor auction. You have to, okay, tractoring using 1 point. That's exactly what I want to do. Wait for the opponent to respond. Okay, you see tractoring red for using 1 point. And that's where you have the tractor auction. And he says he's fighting 1. Okay. So I do like +2, which means I'm using 2 points of tractor now. And then it might send back, got me, gore me. Well, if you got him tractored, you might just gore him. But now I know they're not one within tractor range, but this is for example purposes only. So what will happen is that you would bring up the game list. You can bring up the game list on the Mac using Command L or Control L. That will allow you to switch back and forth quickly, because Command L hides it and brings it back up. Okay, so there's 2 ways of tracking. One's either click on the game list and click tractor, or right click on the piece and say tractor. So you want to attach a tractor. So we attack a tractor, we're going to attach it to red. First thing it's going to ask you is, okay, is the clink using impulse for movement? This is important because that's the client will actually calculate the cost, not the cost, but it will calculate the speeds based on your answers. It uses the standard SFU calculations. And impulse move is not as important in this scenario because they're both movement cost 1. But if you're using movement cost 1 versus movement cost 2/3 or some other combination where it's not 1 point of energy, it makes a big difference. It could make a difference between losing and winning. And I'm going to say, yes, I did that. And what usually happens is that the opponent will get a request for tractor. This is because the client doesn't implement rules, but it just wants to make sure that it's a legal move for me to tractor red. Because if it's not a legal move because of certain things, for example, if there's a web dividing the 2 ships, the tractor is illegal. The client will let you do it, but according to the rules, it's illegal. So I'll say yes, so then you can see, okay, yes, I'm also using movement. The client will then say, okay, those 2 are tractored. And then I'll change the speed for red, which is my opponent, and the clink now moves speed 7. Now these are considered attached. So the next time that either of us move, both of them will be moving. Okay, looks like red moves. So if red moves, let's say red moves straight ahead, you notice that the clink now moves backwards. Well, that's because of the Fed the Fed moved forward and they're tractored, they're linked. And until they're unlinked due to, like, for example, let's say that now as the clink, I really don't like that situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and release that tractor. So I release it, select red, and I let go of the tractor. The tractor is then removed and the speeds are restored back to their original speeds, and we move on. And that is how you tractor activity and how you would tractor your opponent. If you tractor, the client is smart enough so that if you tractor a drone, it will not ask you, okay, it won't actually ask, it'll ask for whether that's valid or not, but it won't ask, okay, are there impulse activity? Are you using impulse? So if you tractor yourself, and it's one of your own things like either a drone or you're tractoring a shuttle, it will not ask you, do you want to tractor this? Because obviously you do want to tractor this. If it's the only thing it might ask you in the case of a ship is if there's impulse activity selected for that. because the client makes no assumption about what you entered in on the EA, whether you remember to specify you're using impulse or not. It will say that and automatically put an I if you're using the speed plot. And that is the way you do tractors. That is the end of this tutorial. Thank you.